Okay, I'll let you take it over, Luke.
Great. Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for showing up. I know you are headed into a busy semester here, so it's kind of a busy time of year. So I appreciate you taking the time to come and visit. So we're going to be talking about important conversations, engaging your students in the honest discussion about AI. My name's Lew Ludwig. I'm from Denison University. We're a small liberal arts school of about 2,200 students. We're near Columbus, Ohio, and I'm also their our teaching center director out there. By trade, I'm a mathematician, so I've been kind of working with the AI realm pretty early on. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. Again, some of my goals for today. I know a lot of us are new to this, which is perfectly fine. I know some of us are a little bit more advanced. I will be honest with you that we're going to be kind of gearing this more towards folks who are new to this because that's where the bulk of us are at. So just be patient with me if you're looking for some super secret hacks. I do have a website that I will share with some resources on it, but again, probably no super secret hacks, just straight up here. So anyway, again, welcome and glad you're here with us. Okay, so let me see if I can get this thing going. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I know you're on Zoom and you're on mute and you're busy and all that kind of stuff, but I do like to hear kind of from what you're doing and what's going on out there. So I'm going to be asking some things in what I call a Zoom cascade, and we're going to do this in the chat. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to respond in the chat. But the reason we call it a cascade is we wait until we hit enter, and I will count to three, 1, 2, 3, and then we all hit enter, and then blah, 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 the thing cascades or waterfalls down the Zoom screen. So again, I'm going to ask you a question, but please do not hit enter just yet. So let me see if I can get this going. So here's my question for you. The first question of the day for the meeting chat. How are you feeling on a scale of dog? Now, you got to put this in context. How are you feeling of a scale of dog with regard to with regard to education and AI, right? So where are you feeling? Again, you're just going to type your number and you're going to pick your number, and you're not going to hit enter yet. Now that said, let me see here. I think, oh yeah. So if you're looking for terminology, ChatGPT came up with this for me. It's cozy contentment, mild panic, irritated annoyance. I don't know whatever. But pick your number. Where are you at mentally with AI in education? And then go ahead on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Oh, 4s and 5s, 7s, 4s and 5s, 4s. Boy, a lot of 4s and 5s. Look at you guys. Okay, it's 2 2s. Okay, so let me hang on a second. I'm on. By the way, usually when I do these presentations, I'm in my home office or my office at school, and I got all these screens. It looks like NASA control. I got this tiny little computer, so I'm trying to do all this. But lots of 4s and 5s. Okay, I mean, I'll take a 4, right? And 5. Yeah, I hear you. Let's be honest with each other. I'm going to try to encourage you to think about how to use AI. But at the end of the day, my real goal is just to make sure that you get out there enough to be able to make an informed decision of whether you want to use it or not. So this is, it's been kind of thrown at us. It's not fair. Silicon Valley, whoever's doing this, they just keep lobbing more and more and more stuff at us, and it's just a fire hose that we can't keep up with. So I hear you. Okay. All right. So like I said, I run the teaching center at Denison, and this is what my fall of 2023 and spring 2024 looked like. I would have an AI session, and like 3 people would show up. And we're like 250 faculty members, right? And I'm like, what the heck's going on? Why are people not coming to these events? Because this is important stuff. And it took my 24-year-old son to kind of like, hey, dude, this is an existential threat for folks, right? This is something that they didn't ask for, that was kind of dumped in their lap. And moreover, it's kind of threatening them. It's kind of, it's disrupting all of our educational process. And you're trying to be like, hey guys, use this stuff. Isn't this great and wonderful? So he's like, dude, you can't do that. So I've decided, or I've understood. I hear that. Let's kind of idle this back. There's actually been even, posts on this. So this was just back in September 2024. Is AI an existential threat? So we have to be mindful of that, and kind of to acknowledge that. So no matter where you're at on this road of AI, it's not going to go away. I mean, you remember MOOCs, but those kind of disappeared, right? But this is not going to go away. But we're just at different stages along that. We need to kind of acknowledge that. Some people have even gone as far. I mean, I don't want to make light of this, but they've even gone as far as saying that there's just stages of grief of how we're kind of angry and mad, and we're kind of whatever going on with the AI thing. So that's actually been talked about as well. Now, as we go through this, I want to point out the slides, as well as these references and things that I have. Again, I will have as a web page for you that I created for you folks that Lori has the link. You'll get the link here in a second. So all these resources will be available to you. Okay, so let's just take a moment of grace as we kind of head into this because I do think it is one of those things. It's just a lot, right? Now I have 20-something-year-old kids, and minions are really big in the 20-year-old crowd for whatever reason. So bear with me. I wanted to have a moment of grace and it's kind of a yes, deep breath, kind of a cleansing breath, and kind of figure out what's going on here. So I said, okay, make me a cleansing breath. And it gave me a smoking minion. I'm like, okay, looks like it's, no, I don't want that. It looks like he's smoking. So try it again. Then it gave me a minion who was, going with grace, and somebody else is behind him. Anyway, here we go. This is my minion picture. But here's what I want you to think about: moment of grace for different people. First of all, for our students, okay, you might not think about this, but think about your students. They have what, 4 or 5 professors. Two of the professors say, can't use this with an inch of your life. One of them pretends it doesn't exist. And then the two other ones are like, use it however you want. They're confused. They don't know how to use the stuff. They're not being trained in it very well. Moreover, they go off and have a summer internship that says, hey, use AI as much as you can. So our students are really, really confused, and they're looking for some guidance, for some leadership from this. There's actually a recent piece. I mean, this looks recent. It's December of 9. For me in AI world, like a month old is way old. But anyway, to use or not use AI is students' burden. And this is kind of what students are struggling with right now. So I know a lot of us are worried about academic integrity. In my opinion, if you take the circle of all your students that you have, there's going to be that little slice that no matter what you do, it's just in them that they think that they need to kind of beat the system, and let's face it, let cheat, right? And it's a little slice, right? And that's going to happen whether it's AI or Chegg or things on paper mills, whatever the case might be. What I'm talking about here is we need to think about that other slice. This bigger part of our students. They want to do good work. They generally want to please us, but they are really, really confused now. So, give a moment of grace for your students. A moment of grace for your colleagues. We're all over the map, right? Some people, I'm going to show you in a minute how much you've been using AI. Some of us are like fives, like using it a whole bunch, and some of us are ones, haven't used it hardly at all. Be patient with your colleagues as we kind of move down this scale together. So a moment of grace for them. Um, I never thought I'd have this slide, but a moment of grace for your administrators. Could you imagine being the dean, provost, whatever, in charge of writing the AI syllabus statement, right? That is legally binding that you're going to send out that deals with AI. I can't imagine what they're going through. So yes, even a moment of grace for them. So again, hopefully, big breath, you're in the right place. I tried to get the minions to be in Readly. I have no idea if this is what Readly looks like. I know it's kind of a farming community. I'm not sure about the palm trees, but again, it tried. So there you go. So hopefully that's you. It's just a nice big, side moment of grace as we kind of enter this together. Okay, who's in the room, or more specifically, who's in the Zoom room with us today? So when you registered, you kind of signed up and kind of answered some questions for me. So one of the questions was your understanding of AI. This question is more not how much have you used it, but how much have you listened to podcasts, read articles, whatever the case may be. And you can kind of see there that neutral to somewhat to very familiar is kind of the biggest. Actually, boy, ChatGPT did this for me. I usually do this on Google. Another story, but Lori, again, why I won't use Zoom again for registration. But you can kind of see where folks are at. So blue is somewhat familiar. So on a kind of a Likert scale, that would be like a 3 or a 4 sort of thing. Actually, that would be a 4. So we're fairly familiar with what's going on. Now, but when we go and look at how much we've used it, then all of a sudden it gets flipped. So, right, we have limited experience. So, occasional use, that's a big chunk of us here, and then limited experience. So, in other words, we may have read about it, heard about it a lot, but we really haven't engaged with it a bunch. So, again, that's kind of the target audience that I'm going to be looking at today, is trying to help you think about how to move forward with that. Again, folks down the extensive use thing, I warned you before, just be aware. Not too many things that what you might think about is, if you are an extensive user, look at the other faces or other people in the chat and reach out to them, and you can kind of be maybe a leader or a resource on your campus when you're dealing with AI. Okay, so accounts. So these are the different accounts that you have available. And look at that, man, ChatGPT by far, either the paid or the free version, that is definitely the dominant thing that people are using out there. And it's almost one of those things, it's like, hand me that Kleenex, hand me that tissue. It's almost interchangeable, that ChatGPT and AI are kind of the one and the same because it got out there early. And this is the one that your students are probably using most of. A few folks are using Gemini and Claude and things like that. I am a huge ChatGPT user. It's just what I kind of started off with and I've stuck with. I'm by no means promoting that one over the other. I just want to tell you about my familiarity. So couple things to keep in mind as we move forward. When I say AI, I really mean generative AI, these large language models that generate stuff. I don't mean the AI that's driving your car or the AI that's running my vacuum cleaner at home, but generative AI. And the other thing is that due to the prevalence of it, I will almost exclusively talk about ChatGPT, and really I'll use like ChatGPT and AI. Let's kind of use those words interchangeably because it's just like, copy and Xerox kind of thing. So, okay. Are there any particular challenges that you had that you want to address in this session? I asked that question, and three big things were understanding effective utilization. So use AI and help students utilize it. So we'll get onto that. Ethical use, using AI responsibly in research and writing and guiding students on ethical practices. I really like that idea of guiding your students. That is just so important. The inevitable third, prevention of academic dishonesty. Okay, again, what I want you to think about is you got that picture, right, of the students. You got that circle. You got that little slice. I'm sorry, folks, we're going to have that little slice for eternity. But we want to think about that larger group. And again, think about not as thinking about this as much as dishonesty is, but your students are not aware to how to properly use these tools, and we need to kind of help guide them in that. And that's what I hope to talk to you about today. So our outline, what I'm going to talk about today is we're going to talk about our current state of generative AI. I'm going to talk just real quickly about some of the pitfalls that are going on. Then hopefully we're going to get out there and play with AI a little bit. And I'll talk about how you can talk to your students. And I'll talk about some very briefly about different levels of use. And then I'll get to those resources. So again, those resource page, that's for you guys, that's tinyurl 2025-ai.readly. With that, let's see, actually, if I were clever, I don't know, I'm not that clever. I was going to say I could cut and paste that and put that in the chat. I think Lori, you have access to that. So if you want to put that website into the chat for them, then they can go off and look at the website and ignore me for the rest of the talk. But anyway, that's something that I put together, and I will talk about that at the end. Okay. Goals for the session. So again, my goal for a lot of us, because we're kind of, on that Likert scale of how much have we used it, we're a lot of ones and twos and a few threes. I want us to get out there and play with the thing. That's what the thing is, because what you need to do, no matter whether you decide to use AI or not use AI, you need to know enough about what's out there, what's available to make an informed decision. So I'm not saying, hey, go out there and you have to use it. I'm just saying play with it enough so that you know what it's capable of, what it's not capable of, so that you can make an informed decision. Because at the end of the day, for your classroom, you're the expert, right? And you just stand around a water cooler and somebody says, oh, it does this or does that. No, 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 no. You need to figure that out for yourself and what that means for your students. So again, I want you to walk away from this to get out there and play with this thing enough that you can make an informed decision. And then, like I said, we're going to have a talk with our students, now that we are informed with that, so that we're informed, so we can then have those discussions with our students. Okay, current state of generative AI. I just want to give a quick overview because a lot of people, there's all these different names and numbers and stuff floating around. So basically what happened in November of 2022, this thing called ChatGPT 3.5 came out from OpenAI. They just kind of like threw it out there in the web and didn't think much of it. And within 5 days, over 1 million people had subscriptions to this, which just blew up compared to like TikTok or anything else. Nothing has kind of gained on that quickly. It was silly. It made mistakes, right? So it said things like, a spoon was faster than a turtle in a race because all the data said turtle, or all the stuff it was trained on said turtles were slow. But, people are like, oh, haha, silly little robot. But then by March of 2023, they came up with a new thing called ChatGPT 4.0. Think about like engines in a car. You went from a 3.5 liter, not correct, to a 4 liter. I mean, but the thing was the magnitude is just much, much bigger, much, much more powerful. If we turn this thing off today and didn't advance it anymore, we could spend 5 to 10 years just figuring out all the different things that we could do with this 4.0 model. There's a lot of stuff that you could do. Then let's see, May of 2024, they dropped this thing called 4.0. Now, be careful here. 4.0. 4.0. Why the horrible naming? Anyway, O stands for Omni. Omni means it can do three things. It can do text, audio, and video, and they made that freely available. This is mostly what your students have, and when you have a free account, that's what it's using. It uses the 4.0 model a little bit for like 5 or 6 prompts, and then it kind of goes back to the cheaper 3.5 version. Let's see.
So
And then,
can I
yeah.
interrupt you? If you have a paid version, which version is it?
We're right there. We're right there. I will tell you which ones in a couple clicks. All good. All good. That's a good question. ChatGPT, look what they did to us. So they had numbers and then letters and numbers. Now let's do a letter. Oh, let's call it O1 just to confuse people. This one is a big deal. It does because a lot of the mathematicians like me would laugh up or say, "Oh, silly thing, can't do math." It can do really important decent math now, and that was called Strawberry. And then there's this thing called Canvas that came out. Canvas allows you to do a lot more editing. And again, I'll get to which one is paid. And then in 2024, or sorry, this is December, they came out with this thing called ChatGPT Pro, which is kind of like the Strawberry thing on steroids. It's just full on, and it does a lot of amazing things. But the question is how much do these things cost? Now, before I move on with this, this little thing splashed up here. This little timeline I made for you, it took me about 40 minutes to create this thing that I spent about 93 seconds on. Why do I say that? Because, it was a Google thing and I can make a timeline in my slides, but then this stuff keeps growing. I have to go back and rebuild it each time. And I don't have much hair to lose, right? 40 minutes. Look at this thing. I think this kind of captures the same idea, right? It's like you're going down this curve and it does that. I used something called Napkin AI. I dumped in my 6 or 7 ideas and the dates. It made this thing in about 13 seconds. So Napkin AI, if anything, if you want to, you're like, this guy's useless and I'm not going to learn anything, hang up, that's fine. Before you do, write down Napkin AI. It is a very simple tool for creating some pretty cool graphics, and it's dead easy to use. You don't have to have a ChatGPT account, and it's free. Napkin AI. And again, I don't get paid for that one either. But okay, so Lori, to your point, how much do these things cost? Okay, so ChatGPT 3.5 is free. If you pay $20 a month to OpenAI, you get access to 4.0. That is the legacy model. I will be honest with you, that's the one that I use most for the type of writing and stuff that I do. It just edits better for me than the 4.0 model. 4.0 is free. The Strawberry, again, that would be in the $20 model, and the Canvas is in the $20 model. Look at this. ChatGPT Pro, I don't know what they're, $200. And I'm currently up in Seattle at a math conference that's on AI. And somebody told me that even with this $200 model, they're losing money on the amount of whatever it took to develop this. So, resource issues and stuff. I mean, it's just, it's not good. But anyway, I just want to kind of give you a quick update on kind of where things are at. My guess is, again, is that your students are probably using that free version up there, that 4.0. I will be honest with you, if you have the means and you really want to kind of figure out what's going on with this thing, that $20 a month is, what would that be? Three trips to Starbucks or so. It would be money well spent, I think, because it is a much more powerful model. Just throwing that out there. Okay, so let me pause real quickly for questions so we can take a look at the chat. I've been blathering on for a bit. So if there's anything in chat, and Laura, you're watching the chat because I have my tiny little screen here. I can't see anything. So if nothing pops up, I will continue, but let me know.
Yeah, no, nothing so far.
It's a cute picture, if nothing else. So, okay. All right. If you're still typing, that's fine. You can interrupt me, but I'll go ahead and jump in and keep on moving here. Okay, so pitfalls of AI. There are so many of them out there. And if you are old like me and remember the Atari pitfall, yes, that's what this is a shout out to. Anyway, there's environmental, economic implications. I mean, the amount of energy it takes to kind of develop and train these things. Now, that said, you have to be a little bit careful here. I mean, we do a lot of things in the States that are not necessarily good things. I mean, in some sense, the amount of energy used, or water in particular, to kind of train these things would be like a pallet full of almonds at Costco. I mean, but I'm not saying that this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I just like, there's a lot of different things going on, and we just have to be mindful of that. But yes, these things do take a lot of energy to train them. And then once they're up and running, not as bad probably as maybe streaming from Netflix or something like that. Human costs, when they train these things, there was the GPT, generative pre-trained. So pre-training means that, the computer was learning on its own, but then humans had to interact with that. And there was a lot of, developing countries where they kind of farmed this stuff out, and people had to go through and go through and check a lot of stuff and a lot of crazy things that are going on. So there's human costs, there's privacy and data security. But listen, if you're on a Microsoft campus or a Google campus and you have cloud stuff, in my opinion, that stuff's up there. don't tell me they're not training on your data already. So just, anytime things go beyond your computer, I'm very leery about that. And of course, there's cultural and social impacts. We have young students whose brains are still developing. They're trying to do relationships. The AI is a lot easier to have a relationship. I mean, there's just all kinds of messes we could go there. And then, the equity and access. I've already alluded to the fact that, hey, the $20 model is much stronger than the free version. So what does that mean as far as equity and access? So a lot of different things we could go down there. Unfortunately, that's kind of not the direction, but I just want to, many 300-pound gorillas in the room there that I want to acknowledge. Okay. All right. So here's where I need you folks to wake up. So remember how I talked about I wanted you to play with AI for a little bit. So hopefully you have your browser up and going. And here's what I mean by browser. So you got ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. Now, if you do not, you're like, dude, I don't have an account. You can literally go to your web browser and type in chatgpt.com, and it'll pop up with this little screen that you can use. You don't even have to have an account, but you can play with this thing. And I'll walk you through in a second what that will look like. But here's what I want you to do with the browser. I'm sorry. As you're getting that browser ready, here's I'm sorry, confused myself. Here's the argument of why I want you to start playing with this thing. There's kind of this chicken and egg problem that's going on, right? So here's the deal. Instructors don't have a lot of familiarity with AI, so they can't effectively teach it to their students. Okay, so we start there. But then the students misuse the AI because they just take it and cut and paste in solutions, and they're kind of bypassing learning because they've not been told how to use AI. And then instructors are like, well, okay, we'll just, the heck with this. We're going to ban AI. So that just leads to avoidance, and we're not, any meaningful engagement. We're not trusting one another. And then there's no progress towards, responsible use. And this kind of chicken and egg thing kind of keeps, perpetuating. So again, my goal for this is to convince you to get out there and play with this thing enough so that you can make informed decisions about this. Now, what do I mean by play? So Ethan Mollick, and this is one of the resources that I will share on the website. Ethan Mollick is at the Wharton School of Business, and he was kind of one of the big proponents of AI and using with education stuff early on. And he has a book called Co-Intelligence, which I highly recommend. But anyway, he also has a blog post, and he talks about this 10 hours. He says you have to go out there and play with it for 10 hours. And this is a little quote he had from Ezra Klein interview. The 10 hours is as arbitrary as 10,000 steps. Like there's no scientific basis for it. I don't know if 10 hours is the real limit, but it seems to be somewhat transformative. Here's the deal. The key is to use it in an area where you, the faculty member, are the expert, so that you can understand what it's good at and what it's bad at, and then learn to shape its capabilities. So again, getting out there and playing with it for 10 hours. Okay, so let's give this a try. So hopefully you have that thing up and going. So here's where we're going to give this thing a try. Here's what I want you to do. So go ahead and open the thing up. And what we're going to do is we're going to start a new message or prompt about something you are very familiar with. Now, let me give you a coax here. So for example, write a 150-word paragraph about, I don't know, maybe you're in biology, photosynthesis, maybe you're in econ, about supply and demand, maybe you're in poli-sci, about the 2020 election. But whatever it is, I want you to type that into your chat. So let me see if I can do that for mine. Do I want to lose this? Oh, this is going to be dangerous if I do that. I'm going to go over this guy here. Okay. So this is, if you've not played with this before, what happens is you just have this little screen here. So give me 150 words on the idea of limit from calculus, because that's what I teach math, right? So something like that. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and do that and hit enter. And then it's going to start generating something for you. I want you to take a quick second and read through the thing. And then what I want you to do is to give it a grade. Okay, so read through what it said. And then what I want you to do is go ahead and give it a grade. And when you do that, you're going to put the grade in the chat. So go through, well, let's see, grade. How about a 1 through 10? So 1 through 10, 10's perfect, 1's no good, 5 or 6, middle, whatever. So go ahead, have it generate something for you, and then you're going to give it a grade. Okay. And you can just go ahead and start typing those things as you want. We're not going to do a cascade on this one. Ooh, Elaine's very 6 point. I like the decimals. That's good. Oh gosh, John, 10. John, make it harder. Oh, Lori, come on, you gotta ask it a harder question than that. Oh, guys, come on. Okay, man, this is 8. Eek. Eek. Okay. So, Lane, I'm sticking with that 6.8 of 9. Oh my gosh. Oh, 4. Okay, Kate, I'm curious, Kate, what's your discipline? That's good. Okay, Nancy's got something. So I want to know what these disciplines are. Or maybe they're just tough graded. Film. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? English, thank you. Nicole's at a 7. Chemistry, Veronica. Okay, cool, cool. Veronica, Veronica gave it a 9. Okay, okay, okay. All right. So let me go back to this thing. So my hope is, and the thing is that the prompt that we gave it was extremely short, and this was not necessarily the best prompt, and I kind of did this intentionally. My hope was is that you would kind of see that ChatGPT at minimum is average. I'll be honest, I was hoping for a few more 6s and 7s, like okay, it's average, but I mean, gosh, this is almost better. It's better than average, which okay, guys, this is worrisome. Why? Because what's this going to mean for our average student? So if we have an average student and you just graded all this stuff, and if I mean, I just spitball that thing, I would probably say from the chat that our average was a high 7. That's beating our average student. So what does that mean out in the workforce, right? If an average student, if AI is going to do better work than the average student, why should our average student get hired? So again, what I'm trying to impress upon you, the reason you need to get out there, work with this thing and understand what's going on. It's not so much for you, it's for your students, because this is what they're going to be inheriting. This is what they're going to be stepping out into. And we need to make sure that they're ready to do this in a useful and ethical way, right, as we move forward. So just keep that in mind. So yes, AI is average, but what does that mean for our average student? Okay. All right, so here's the question. You might say, okay, how do I advance my play from average? Now, again, you guys are already getting some pretty good stuff, but we need to up our prompting game. So the thing that you just typed in, you might be familiar with the word prompt. So that's what you did. Instead of asking a question, you kind of sent in what's called a prompt. And you might have heard this phrase called prompt engineering. I really don't like that phrase. Engineering sounds very like scientific and I can replicate and all that kind of stuff. Prompting's very organic. It's more of a conversational thing. So one of the things that we can do to kind of help with our prompting game on the website, again, that hopefully Lori has, I think she's shared in the chat, there's a book down there from Kevin Yee and his group down at University of Central Florida. It's a free PDF. You can click on this thing, and it's called AI Hacks for Educators. And it's a really cool thing because what Kevin does is he has like these 50 plus things, and one of the things might be like crafting an enticing, welcoming statement for your syllabus. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. Let's see here. I need to share this different screen. All right. Okay, share. So now you should be able to see. So what's happening is this is Kevin's book and crafting an enticing welcome syllabus. So this is how cool this book is. Very, very cheap and cheerful, very straightforward. First page is, hey, what you're going to do. Second page is there's the prompt. So you can literally take this thing, cut and paste it, drop it into ChatGPT, and you're off to the races. Now, as you read this thing, you're like, oh, I want to, but you can copy and paste it so you can easily modify this. But look at how long his prompts are. So if you want to be successful with getting AI to kind of create the stuff that you want, you really have to up your prompting game. And one of the things I want you to keep in mind as you're thinking about, well, what does that mean? I think the easiest thing to do, let me go back to my slides here. The easiest thing for you to do when you're thinking about prompting is to think about AI as a very eager student, but who kind of goofs things up some, right? So you ask it a question, it doesn't get it right. If that was your student, you would just give up and walk away. You'd ask it a slightly different question. You go in a different direction. So as you're interacting with this thing, think about asking it different questions in different directions, trying to convince it, trying to get it to the result that you want. And as you play with that more, it turns out that, everybody thought, oh, IT should fix all the AI stuff. No, not A. That's like saying, oh, chemists can only do the painting because they understand the molecular structure of paint, right? That's a Ethan Mollick quote. But anyway, the thing is that actually people who deal with other people like managers and educators are very good with prompting with AI because they can kind of have that conversation. And yes, you do. What's the fancy word? You treat it like a human, more anamorphize. I'm sorry, I can't. That's a big word for me to pronounce. But anyway, you get the idea that you're going to kind of treat it like a human, but you do that. Think about it as a student. Okay. So treat your AI like a student guiding forward. I actually have a link here where I talk about this. This was back in April where I was kind of having it do this. So there's a little link there. Again, it's in the web page where I talk about doing that. Okay, so we played with it a little bit. Let's kind of take these. I mean, and that was just a very little bit. I appreciate that, but I do want to keep on time here for you folks. So, all right. Okay, what do I got so far? So he wants me to go out there and play with it. I got to do it for 10 hours. I should do it on something that I'm good at, that I'm an expert on, so I can kind of judge back and forth, and then I can treat it like a student and try to, get it to answer these questions for me, or do the work that I want, do the process. But now, how do I talk about that with my students, right? How do I, so this chicken and egg thing, how do we kind of move beyond that? Okay, so before we worry about ways to discuss generative AI with your students, or well, I'm sorry, here's a quote. This thing was just from yesterday morning. This is from Mark Watkins. Mark Watkins does work. He's at Ole Miss. He's actually a writing center person down there. He's done a lot of good work on AI. He has a column for the Chronicle. But he says many students are still trying to figure out how to best use or not use AI and turning to the faculty for advice. Many faculty might not realize it, but having discussions with students about generative AI can deeply shape how your students view agency and voice with this technology. So again, please keep in mind your poor students and what's going on. So that means we're not talking with our students with regards to, hey, this is cheating and what are you doing? But again, kind of thinking about where they're struggling and how to move forward with them. Okay, so again, this is based on another blog post that I have that you can kind of follow up later on. But again, what we're going to try to do is move from that lack of familiarity to then try to have discussions with our students. Okay, so before discussing AI with your students, what should you do? You need to understand your own, where you kind of stand on AI. So here's what I'm going to do. Next up, I'm going to give you an engagement scale. So I'm going to give you a thing where AI could be used, where students could use AI, and I'm going to give you 10 different steps of how it might be used. I want you to scan down through those steps and then decide, where are you comfortable? So if you land on 4, that means you're comfortable with 1 through 4. If you land on a 6, you're comfortable with 1 through 6. The scale is not perfect. Some people will be like, oh, I like 1 through 3 and I like 5, but not. But anyway, if you pick a number, that means they're on up. Okay. So here's the prompt, or the setup. At which point on this progress list, which I'm about ready to show you, could a student use AI to assist in completing an essay assignment without crossing the line that violates academic integrity in the course? Okay, so again, that threshold. Now, it's a long list. It's kind of small font. I apologize, but I'm trying to squeeze this all in one page. So here we go. So again, this is an essay assignment. Here's 1 through 10, and these gradually get more involved. So scan down through there. And what we'll do is we'll do a Zoom cascade on this, right? So we'll do a cascade where you can type your number and then we'll hit enter on the count of 3. But read through there. Where are you comfortable and where are you not comfortable? Again, not a perfect list, but 5 means 1 through 5, 3 means 1 through 3, and so on. So give you all a second to do that. And again, we'll do a cascade for that thing. Wait, where's my chat?
So don't put in the number yet until he tells you to put in the number.
Yeah, cascade means I'll do the 1, 2, 3, go sort of thing. So
Sorry.
you're
No
good, Kate. No
problem.
worries. No worries. Or Kathleen.
And then you want us to put just the number, like either 1, 2, and if we do 4, then we'll
Yeah. I'm kind of simple. So if you put a 5, I understand that means 1 through 5. If you put a 4, I'd go 1 through 4. So, okay. Are we ready? On the count of 3. Oh, by the way, before we hit enter, guys, before we hit enter, no judgment, right? No judgment on this. So just wherever you land, that's fine. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, a lot of 1s, got some 4s, 1 through 6, 4s. And it's yeah, so some people are like, I'm holding tight, I'm not going above a 1. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Now you might say to yourself, well, okay, but I'm in biology or something like that, or chemistry. I don't do a lot of essay writing. Let's try another one. Let's try another example here. At which point on the progressive scale below could a student use AI in completing a collaborative or a team project? So imagine you're, have a lab group or something, or whatever the case may be, but you have students working together collaboratively. Let's look at this list. Okay, so there's your list now. So here's the different things that they could do. Again, this progressive scale, land on a number, type it into the chat. We'll not hit enter yet. We'll do this as a cascade again. Or folks, draft the entire project. I think that's a good idea. No. All right. let's see if we're ready. So again, all you have to do is put in your number, and then we'll and then I understand where that's at. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. And we've got some fives. Oh, up to 7, 1, 5s, 4s, 6. This one seems a little bit more clustered than the other one. So again, maybe it's a little bit more general. But here's the thing. Here's what's tricky about this. Is first is maybe I don't like the scale, but second of all, maybe you're giving me examples that don't really apply to my class. So I'm just kind of winging it to make you happy. So here's the deal. How would you go about creating a scale for yourself? So what I did, this actually has been out for a while. This was back in July 27, I think, of 23. Ryan Watkins, he's a center director out in DC area. But what he did, let me see if I can pull this up for you. Yeah, so what he did is he had this little blog post called From AI to A plus, where he talked about going through and helping you kind of figure out how to have discussions with your students about AI. And the cool thing is that he's a pretty clever guy. He actually created this Google form, which I'm going to link to for you guys. And this Google form was exactly those questions that I asked. So he said, here's one example. What about essays? And here's another example about writing tests or quizzes. Here's another example about our lit review. So what he did was, here's the collaborative thing. So I just kind of cut and pasted from that. But again, Ryan created these things for you. You're like, okay, great, Ryan, but that really doesn't quite fit what I want to do. So here, let me see if I can go back to, there we go. So here's what we can do. Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. What we can do is we can actually create a Ryan Watkins-like scale for our own class. Again, please keep in mind, you are the expert in your classroom. You know your students, you know the context, you know the situation. You need to take control of this. So here's a prompt that you could write. I want you to act, oh, I'm sorry. I want you to act like an expert. I'm a mathematician, right? I want you to act an expert in mathematical pedagogy at the college level. You will help me develop a scale for the various ways that students can use generative AI on a task. Your work will look similar to Ryan Watkins' work below. Read through his example, but do not start creating anything. I will give you my example in the next prompt. I first want you to make sure you understand the task ahead. Look at how detailed, right? I'm very much leading. This is a very eager student that wants to help me out, but I'm very much leading it with examples. I'm setting the context of what it is. It's a professional math pedagogy expert. And I'm going to say, I want you to use this Ryan Watkins thing. I'm going to click on this to show you what this looked like. So this is the interaction that I had with ChatGPT, and I just want to show you. So here's kind of my paragraph. Let me blow this up a little bit so folks can see. Here's the paragraph I just read to you. But what I did is I literally went to Ryan's Google form. I went to his Google form here. I just hit Control A, Control C. I copied the whole bloomin' thing, I copied that whole thing, and I just pasted it. So here it is. It's just pasted in, and you scan down through here, and look at this. It's all this, and then there's this 1s and 2s, and then it did this like weird thing. Look at like this. It's just gibberish, right? But the thing is that AI can understand this, and it can actually read through this because it's very used to reading and skimming through web. So you don't have to format things nicely. But anyway, and by the way, I've talked to Ryan. He's okay with me using this, so it's not a plagiarism thing or anything like that. So anyway, if I go down, then it eventually says, sure, I understand what you want to do. Go ahead and do that. Then I shared with it. This is a homework example I have. So if any mathematicians out there, it's a classic, ladder sliding down the wall related rates problem. And then it went through and it said, okay, here is a Ryan Watkins-like scale. Clarify concepts, understand the problem, equations and identification, and so on. And it actually goes through and even does talks about some of the math in that context. So again, what I'm doing is I'm creating my own scale so that I then have something very concrete that I can talk with my students about. It's not just some ethereal thing that somebody else has created. It's in the context of my course. Here's a homework assignment that you're going to work with, and it creates that scale. Now, you might not be happy with the scale. You might have to tweak it a little bit, but I don't know about you. I would much rather edit somebody else's scale 1 through 10 than have to create my own from scratch. So I think that's a really useful thing. So again, it kind of gets us started with, getting more familiar. So now you can prompt a little bit better, use that hack that I have just given you. Again, you'll have access to the web page and to the slides, so you can try this out for yourself. And what we need to do now is we need to move away. This is probably not the best picture. It's like a cheating student copy and pasting. But the problem is our students don't know how to prompt AI. You give them the question, well, it's like, oh, go cut and paste. They don't know any better. So We can go one better. We can actually help our students develop their prompting skills by doing the following. Now that we've done the 1 through 10 thing with AI, then ask it, have AI suggest a prompt students can use for each level. And I did that. So the next thing I said, great, this is great. Now, can you give me for each one of these levels, can you give me a prompt that students can use with generative AI? And it gave them, it says, okay, for clarification, here's the prompt that you type in. Can you explain what related rates are, blah, 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 blah. So each one of these is a prompt then that students can use that would then hit at that level. So what you're doing is you're having a discussion with your students about where you're comfortable at. By the way Ryan does this is he does it, he grades it himself, and then he gives it to the students and has them vote, and then they kind of have the discussion. But anyway, after you kind of land on, okay, I'm good with 4 through 1, right? Then you can say, here's what a question 1 looks like. Here's what a question 2 would look like, 3 and 4, as you're prompting AI. Because otherwise, if they just cut and paste the homework problem in, it's probably going to solve it for them. Students are going to learn, and you're going to be grading AI stuff, and you don't want to be doing that. Okay, so again, just real quickly, that discussion with your students, because that's kind of the big part of this this presentation what we're talking about here. But what you do is you create an AI engagement scale for your assignment. Okay, so again, you can cut and paste that Ryan Watkins thing. Again, I will have those resources on the web that kind of coach you through that. And then what you do is you rate your own acceptance on that scale. So I'm good with 1 through 5 or whatever. Then you have your students do it, right? And they can rate the engagement scale. And then you can have that discussion of why, you need to be honest with your students about, sometimes learning, we need to have that friction in order to learn. It can't all be easy and smooth and things like that. And then you can develop and share your guided AI prompting. So now you're learning with your students about how to actually go through and prompt AI in a productive and effective way, instead of just saying, hey, cut and paste, give me the answer. Okay, and then, by the way, do this more than once. This is not like a first day of class and never do it again. The thing is that, like, if you have weekly homework, you can always take one of your homework problems and use that as an example and kind of have a quick conversation about this as you move throughout the semester. Okay. All right, we're getting close here, folks. I appreciate you kind of hanging in here with me. I just want to real quickly talk about different levels of AI use. We're like I said, we're just about out the door here. But I do want to mention that there's an article out. So Maha Bali, she's actually a center person in Egypt of all places, but the World Wide Web, and we kind of interact a lot. But she has this thing which she calls a cake making analogy. And the idea is this, is that your students, they're at different levels in their career or different levels in their education. There might be different things that you require them to do. So you might think about, I need students to do the very basic things. I need them to be the baker to make the cake. They need to start from scratch. They have the eggs and the flour, the whole 9 yards. They need to start from scratch. So that's something I might do, like in my intro calculus class. Like, hey guys, we're not going to use much AI. I need you to do this the hard way to kind of build your character, build up your skills and all that sort of thing. Then there might be like the 200 level class where it's like, okay, some of the computation stuff we can feed out to software or AI or whatever. It's more like decorating the cake. You're using some other skills. You already have the base layer of the cake, but now you can kind of go through and decorate it. Then you might even move in further, and you might be like, you know what? I am doing a great big project. Cake is one of the things. Like, I'm a wedding planner. Yes, I need a cake, but I'm going to hire a baker to do that because I'm planning this much bigger project. So there's different levels of where we might be wanting students to not use AI to where we might let them use it more as they go on through their education. So for example, for me as a mathematician, so calculus, they might be a baker. Then in linear algebra, where they're computing some complicated, row reduction or stuff, they might farm that out to AI. So that would be their linear algebra class. And then data analytics might be putting a lot of different data together and sort out what makes sense and all that. So they might be using AI a lot more. So I think as we move forward with this, we need to think about, there's going to be different levels at different stages in students' careers where they're going to be using this more or less. And we need to start thinking about that, right? Where do I need them to do the hard frictiony stuff? And where can I, kind of let up on that a little bit for them to be able to do larger things? Okay, the resources. So let me go ahead and jump to the resources here real quickly.
Hey,
Oh,
Lou, I have
sorry.
a question for you. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
So, so just to kind of clarify, because when I start with talking with my students about AI, I do kind of start with ethics and is it ethical to use? It sounds like what you're saying is I need to figure out where I am on that scale, and depending on the project, obviously, that's the last part you just said, but also like let the students kind of see where maybe they're at on the scale and have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I think so. So to your point, Lori, for a lot of us, again. So Lori was one of those advanced users. She's using AI a lot, so she's good at it. But again, don't forget my goal is just to get you out there to play with this enough to understand it yourself, to then have the conversation with your student. But yes, that conversation is about, here's an assignment, how you might use it, have it create a scale, or you can create a scale of how you might go about doing that. You rate it yourself, like I'm good 4 through 1, and then the students can go through and vote, and who knows where they wind up. But then that's a starting place for the conversation, right? That's where you can kind of have that conversation. So you have to be clear on where you're comfortable. They're going to be clear on where they're comfortable, and then somehow together you need to meet, kind of at a common ground and agree on that and have those conversations. My guess would be in the beginning of the semester, those conversations are going to be longer than as we move forward. They get kind of more used to this. But again, think about it. They're out there. They want your input. They want your training. They want your guidance on what to do with this stuff. So
And then it even occurs to me like you might even do a little survey of how they've used it, instead of, like kind of what you did for us to come up with sort of like where they're at with their AI usage too. So you kind of have
right.
understanding.
And you will be surprised. There are some really, really savvy students out there, but the majority are not. So the best they do is this kind of cut and paste thing, because they just haven't had any guidance. They're kind of using it like a Google chat, right? Or a Google, search thing. And oof, you get into trouble real quickly. Anyway, hey folks, so here's going to be the link. Actually, I have to update this. This is the wrong slide, but I'll put the Google slide in there. This is the article I talked about with, the kind of the crying students. Here's the cake analogy thing that I just talked about. Books. So again, here's the AI hack for educators. That's the one that's freely available. If you want to, if you're thinking about a reading group at your school or something like that, Jose Bowen, he used to be the president out at Goucher College. He's the one that did Teaching Naked, I think it was called, where you don't use any technology. He's way into it, but that's a pretty good book. And this one over here, if you're a little bit more advanced, if you're like on a scale of like a 4 or 5 of you're using your AI, you might think about this gray book over here. You can get that from Amazon. It's self-published. It's kind of not the best formatted, but it's got some good ideas. If you're brand new to all this, you're like, dude, I have no idea what you just said. And I need a kind of an overview of what's going on. You cannot go wrong with Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick. It takes about 4 hours to read, or if you have a premium Spotify account, you can actually listen to it for free. For those who are more advanced, AI Snake Oil is kind of a fun one to look at. It actually talks about other types of AI, not specifically generative AI. The thing that we just talked about with the editable surveys and stuff, that's actually all those resources are right here. And this is Ryan Watkins' link. So that's what I talk about here. Here's some useful blogs. So if you want to kind of keep up with what's going on. So again, Ethan Mollick, he has a great blog out there. It talks about, kind of the advances of what's going on, and does it in a kind of an education way. If you're into English or humanities or writing, Mark Watkins is your person. So Mark runs the writing center down at Old Miss. I actually have him coming to Denison remotely on Monday to give a talk to our Writing 101 people. And Mark has a standing column now on AI for the Chronicle, so that's a really good one. And then Philippa Hardman does some really interesting stuff with regard to faculty development. And then there's my blog on the MAA for math. If you want to help with your prompting, again, there's the AI hack for educators. Here's a prompt library, and then Ethan Mollick also has some prompting ideas over here, again, to get you practicing with your prompting. If you're very, very new to AI, I think I sent this out in the original link, but here's some things that you can do to kind of get up to speed on how it works and so on. And then if you're mathy, you can, there's some math stuff going on here, but we kind of skip over that. There's some other things that you can do. We didn't have time for this session, but there's some really cool research tools out there that there's one called Research Rabbit and one called I'm blanking on the name here it begins with a C. But anyway, I can't come up with
Complexity.
it.
There's
No,
no.
no, the perplexity, but there's one with a C, consensus. There it is. But those are two really interesting things, and they actually go to useful databases, so they're not making stuff up. But those are some really great things. As we end this, again, I think we're just starting this journey. We're by no means out of the woods. I think a lot of things are going to have to change. I think for us to worry about, see me in 2 weeks with this paper or in 3 weeks, take this test. I think we're going to have to move away from that and think more about the process of how students are developing things as opposed to the end product, because it's too easy to have somebody else do the end product now. So I think one of the possible ways forward with that, you might have heard of the term alternative grading. I think the next big book or idea out there is probably going to be called something like Alternative Grading in the Age of AI. And these are some resources down here. If you haven't ever played with alternative grading, there's some books down here of some folks that have done some really good stuff over the last few years on alternative grading. But anyway, I think that is that's a wrap, Lori. I think I'm good. So I will end there and I'll turn it over to Lori if she wants to monitor any questions or things like that.
Yeah, are there any questions? That was a lot, and I realized I should have had you come for 90 minutes. That probably would have been better. Anything at all while you're here waiting? Or
I just have a quick question. As you were creating that scale, did
Yeah.
you give ChatGPT all of that information and say, become an expert, and then give the question? Is that what you did?
Yeah. Is it Tony? Is that, did I see who that?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tony, yeah. Again, after I get off the call, I will put the slides in there with the correct link. I'm sorry about that, but you get to that slide when you go to that thing. So what I did is I first set the stage. So to advance your prompting skills, again, this is kind of the weird thing with a student. Like, if I wanted a student to figure out how to do something in math, I'd be like, okay, I want you to be a math genius, right? But you can't do that with a student. So what you would do is you ask the AI, I want you to be an expert in this thing. So it has a context of how you want it to deal with it. So Tony, what's your area?
Business.
She's got to mute. Business. Okay. So, boy, gosh. So, Tony, I want you to be an MBA from the Wharton School of Business, expert on such and such, whatever, right? So that's the context. And then I'm going to want you to help me to create this scale. Then I said, create the scale in the terms of Ryan Watkins, which I cut and pasted below. So this is all in one big prompt. But before it starts running off the races and doing stuff, I said, I want you to stop and ask me questions to make sure this makes sense. So I set the context of how it should behave like an expert. I told it what it's going to do. It's going to create this scale for me with an example that I will share later. And then I gave it Ryan's scale so that it kind of loaded the thing up. So it's like, okay, I know what to do. Then I hit enter and it kind of read through the stuff. And then it waited. It's like, okay, now what's your question? Then I took my little ladder problem and I copied out of the book and I cut and pasted it because that's what my students could do, right? And I said, okay, here's the question. Now you go through and create this 10-step thing. And that's what it did. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, this is a related, it understood it was a related rates problem, and it put all the math context in there that I need. Was it 100% correct? Yeah, I mean, good enough. It kind of convinced you guys, right? It was enough. But if I was actually going to use it, I might polish it a little bit because again, you want the human in the loop. You don't always want to trust the AI. But that's how I had it create that scale. Okay. And then, like I said, if you want, I mean, if you're that kind of person and you want to use a Google form, you can actually have students vote unanimously or not unanimous, anonymously. You can have them vote anonymously in class and stuff like that. So all kinds of fun clicker things that you could do with that. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. I never really thought about kind of preloading some information for them for it before you ask them a question. I think that's a great concept. Yeah.
That is so that's going to take your AI prompting from like here to like here really really quickly because otherwise if you decide kind of like asking a question, it's like, hey, I'm just guy off the street, I'm this is kind of asking things generally, but if you give it specific stuff, then it can do something. So I'm at this math conference and people want examples of incorrect proofs that students could then look through and find the incorrect proofs. It used to be AI would create incorrect proofs. Now it's pretty good, like 90% of the time. So they keep trying to refresh to get it incorrect. Like, no. Just tell it, hey, you are a master at writing proofs. What are some common mistakes that students often make? And it'll tell you. And then say, hey, great, can you create some examples of that? So you actually have it do what you want. My son always tells me, just ask it what you wanted it to do. And it took me a very very long time to understand what he meant by that. But think about it as a student and you want to be very clear and try to coax that what you want out of it. So
I have a question for you. So just dealing with this idea of dishonesty, do you have any tips on how we can convince them this isn't a cut and paste tool?
Well, I think one of the things we need to do, again, remember that circle I talked about? You're going to have that little slice, Lori, that one ear and out the other, right? So we just kind of
Right.
set that aside. But for the rest of the students, yeah, you need to have that honest conversation. I mean, why are we in this business? Why do we think learning is good? I mean, teaching calculus, it's useless. Calculus, they're not going to go out in the world and get a job doing calculus, right? It just no, engineers, it just doesn't happen. But nevertheless, we somehow feel that this is a productive thing to think about, learning and problem solving and that sort of thing that will then be transferable to other skills. So, Lori, I think going back to that average, right? If you're just going to plug and chug and have AI do the work for you, hey, great, you got a degree, but why are you going to be different than the employer? If AI is getting the degree for you, why isn't the employer just going to hire AI? And that's some of the things. There's some scary stuff going on right now, like and so the whole law, lawyers and stuff like that. So you have the people, the law office, the firm, the what do they call partners, right? And then you have the clerks all the way down, and there's a big training process that goes on. The professionals up here, AI can actually do a better job than the clerks. So why didn't the professional, give me all of the cases on this that this judge did during this type of temperature, during this time of day, and it could do all the work, and you don't have to have the little minions underneath you. Oh, my life's easier. Okay, now this person retires, moves on. Who's trained the minions down below? I mean, there's some real big issues that we have to be careful of keep farming things out to AI, and this is going to kind of cut people, the idea of like having an internship. I'm really kind of concerned about what that's going to look like moving forward. But again, back to your students, convince them, hey, if you're just going to have AI do it, why isn't, when you go out in the real world, why aren't they going to do it? What are you going to add differently to this? How are you going to be different than AI to make yourself productive? Maybe that might sell, but again, Lori, your students, what's going to kind of turn their key, but you have to kind of deal with their better angels of why this is an important thing. But again, you'll have that little sliver, they might skate by, and good luck to them, but you need to deal with that other bigger batch. So
Well, I always like to think of it too, like I'm love science fiction and like Star Trek. And even though they have the big computer models, when
yeah,
you answer anything, at some point it breaks and they like still have the knowledge to be able to do it
yeah,
themselves. And I think
yeah.
that
No,
that's something to talk to the students about is having that knowledge. Someone
right.
wrote, clerks are law students who are supposed to become lawyers, so farming out to AI won't help the training of the clerks. Yeah, they need to become lawyers.
That's exactly that's the thing that I really worry about, right? So I'm really worried about this idea of internships and stuff like that. So again, I think impressing upon our students about how do we add value to what we're doing, and if AI can do it. Now, again, that puts it back on the instructor. I think we're going to have to kind of up our game of what we expect from our students, because if they can farm some of the stuff out, then that means we can ask bigger and harder questions. So maybe they move from being the baker to the decorator to the wedding planner, right? Maybe we can have them do. Ethan Mollick talks about that in his book. Again, he's at Wharton. He's got these crazy people he deals with that are very smart, but he has them do much bigger projects than they used to back in the day, because he says, hey, you can use AI. So
Any other questions? These are great, and they're things, they're ideas that we're going to be talking about, battling with. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and
Again, as Laura, as you're moving together with your group of folks, like I said, if they, the books I would recommend would be Ethan Mollick's Co-Intelligence, or that book from Jose Bowen about teaching with AI. I think those would be some good, good books. I think you can kind of get folks together. It tells you how to prompt and things like that. And I think it would be a really good place to start, because again, think about that. We had that group of people around the water cooler or copy or whatever they was. We're on a different, all on a different scale, but getting a community together, faculty learning community together to talk about these things and supporting each other, I think is going to be really useful as you move forward.
yeah, I like the idea of a book group. Um, Anything else? Otherwise, I'll stop the recording and well, I'll hang out for a few minutes with you, Lou. Appreciate your time. I'm sure we all do. There are lots of questions, but I love the idea of creating that scale and to talk to them about that scale and why maybe they need to do some things themselves. So anyway,
Awesome.
anything else?
Awesome.
All right, thank you. And you're going to send us the updated link.
So you have the correct link. I just have to put the correct what's the Google Sheets to it. So it'll, or the
Okay.
slides. Long day slides.